Hi, I am Monique and welcome back to In Her Era, the podcast that gives you the tools and life lessons to help you step into your era as the woman you were always meant to be. I am so happy to say it. I love love. I said it when I was in prep, all I wanted to be when I grew up was a bride. I literally told my whole class. But relationships aren't like Disney as much as I thought that was going to be when we grew up. And even the most confident, inspiring, powerful women I know still struggle in relationships. So we were never taught to set boundaries. We were never taught to hold conversations with our partners. We were never taught how to argue, and we were definitely never taught how to have the self-worth to say, I am enough, regardless of whether I'm in a relationship or I'm not. So I wanted to have a conversation about it. I wanted to have a conversation about relationships, self-worth, what it takes to have a healthy partnership without losing yourself in the process. So today I brought on an expert in this, Jamila Bonvegna. This episode is for all women, whether you are in a relationship, whether you are dating, or whether you've been married for 10 years, you will find something out of this episode. And I am so excited for you to dive into this conversation. It was so inspiring. Jamila Bonvegna, welcome to In Her Era.
Thank you. It's so good to be here. I'm so excited.
I have been very excited to have you on. I really want to first know, for all the women listening, what is a relationship coach and how does it differ from like a standard therapist?
Definitely. Great question. I think there's so much out there these days as well, especially when it comes to social media. Yeah. There's all different coaches specializing in different things. So I think it's a great question to get clear on what actually is a relationship coach. So what I do is I work with 3 different pillars of the relationship. So intimate relationship with yourself, intimate relationships, and then the relationship that you have with your father. And in that, we're really focusing on how to draw and have more connection, how to evolve and be the best version of yourself, and then also unpacking different patterns and behaviors that don't serve you that you may have been holding on from the relationship with your parents. So I am a little bit different to your typical relationship coach, but we do focus on 3 different pillars, and it's really getting clear on understanding what you also want to attract and what energy and vibration that you want to move through. So there's lots of different things, but it is quite literally focusing on your intimate relationships. And for me, it is before you can have a strong foundation with intimacy with someone else, that must start with yourself.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I also love, it feels really broad having the 3 pillars, but also really narrowed down into really specific. And I think each pillar is so needed across the board for every single relationship, especially relationship with yourself, and then how you show up in intimate relationships as well. I want to focus firstly on relationship with yourself and self-worth, because I know that's something that you talk a lot about in your content. And it's an experience like I have firsthand when I was in my first relationship. I don't even know whether I should call it a relationship because when I was 17 or 18, it wasn't the best relationship. I still to this day do not even know what it was. Like it wasn't even defined. I think even though I wanted to ask, I never asked because I was so afraid that he would leave.
Wow.
Like I was so afraid. And looking back, I realized that it was all down to self-worth. Such low self-worth I had in myself at that age, which is like you're so naive at that age. And he would just lay down breadcrumbs and I would just follow along, or I would bend myself backwards to fit into what I guess he wanted from me, which is not the most ideal, and hindsight is the best thing. So I know that my story is not isolated. So what are you seeing in your work in terms of low self-worth and the patterns that bring to intimate relationships?
Definitely. It's such a good question, and it's so common. Like I can guarantee you a lot of women listening to this podcast would have experienced something along these lines in their journey of intimacy and relationships. And I just want to acknowledge it's one of the hardest things as well when you feel like you can't speak up or use your voice because you're afraid of losing someone.
Yeah.
And that's really hard to process. So I think going back to that question, I've just had a mind blank. I was so focused on what you actually said. I was like, I really want to address this.
Go.
But the question in itself was talking around self-worth and the importance of...
Yeah, how the patterns of low self-worth show up in relationships.
Yes, thank you. I was so focused on what you said. So I think it is obviously what I've just mentioned is the lack of being able to use your voice, being too codependent on the other partner and relying on someone else to make decisions. Also, having a conversation where you need a lot of, I guess, reassurance from someone else to say whether you can do something or you should do this. It also may potentially look like, needing words of affirmation from a lot of external people, not just within the relationship.
Like external validation.
External validation, 100%. It can come back to, I guess, the low confidence, not feeling, I guess, comfortable to be intimate. There's so many different ways that this can show up, and then it can also cause resentment because when you are feeling, it almost turns out that it's the other person making you feel a certain way when really it's all happening for you in your own world, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So then there can be a form of resentment for yourself and then also the other person. So it can show up in a lot of different ways, and especially being able to voice and communicate and set boundaries.
Yeah.
Boundaries would be the biggest one. I think that women with low self-worth are afraid to do or to stick to their boundaries because what you just said is potentially losing someone. And if you're setting a boundary and it's not respected and they do choose to leave, then they're not your person.
Yeah.
But it's something still really hard to swallow and come to terms with when your self-worth is low.
Yeah, and I think if I could take myself back to that time, you don't even realize it's your self-worth. You don't realize you lack boundaries. I just thought, he chose me. And you feel so grateful. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he chose me. So I don't want to step out of line almost which is honestly ridiculous when you listen to it in hindsight. But
I believe that how old did you say you were?
I was 17, 18.
Yes, so that's so young. I believe that taking away the word like ridiculous, because I think, it may feel ridiculous for you, but that is something that presented and you were young, and I feel like we are naive and we don't understand. And I take myself back to my relationship at that age and I had no idea what was going on. You're kind of just showing up at a vessel and it's like, wow, this is it. This is a relationship and I'm here and he chose me and whoa. Yeah. Like it's quite overwhelming, I feel, at a young age. Yeah. So I think women can put, labels on like, I don't know why I did that, or it's so ridiculous, or he was so horrible to me, and hold a lot of guilt and shame to themselves because of the decisions they made when they were younger. And I think that can then stay with us and we can unconsciously hold on to that through our next relationships, and that's where you'll find patterns and behaviours that are starting to show up because you are unconscious of what you're holding on to.
Yeah.
So I think being really careful of how you word your experiences when you were younger.
Oh, I love that. Okay, I will change the way I word my language.
But I'm like, you're not ridiculous. You did what you did what you knew in that time, and that felt right.
Totally. Okay, going back to when we were talking about self-worth, obviously in relationships, and you said boundaries.
Yes.
And you talked about boundaries being a thing that is really hard to set with people with low self-worth. Could you elaborate on that and what you feel like would be strategies or someone to set better boundaries if they're struggling with low self-worth?
Yeah. So boundaries is very challenging if you haven't done them before, or you've tried, or you don't understand what they are. Yeah. I think for me is we can't set a boundary unless we are fully clear on what that actually is. So for someone that's in a relationship or is single and they're looking at finding their person, is getting clear on what their values are, because most of the time what your values are will link to your boundaries. Okay. So it's like, if family is a value, a boundary will have to be set with that sometimes. Same with health, same with strong communication. So I think it comes back to getting really clear on what you value. And then if you are in a relationship and you're wanting to set a boundary, maybe take some time to journal, get clear on what that boundary is before you communicate it, or it's even understanding what is it that makes you feel uncomfortable? What is it about this that doesn't feel right for you? And get clear on that. Because the moment you walk into a conversation and you go, I can't stand this anymore, blah, 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 we're dysregulated. We're probably not speaking with clarity and understanding what boundary we're actually setting. So 3 tips that you can do prior to setting a boundary is journal, get clear on where things have been crossed. Make sure that you go into the conversation regulated. So doing 3 cleansing breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth before entering that. And then also when you are communicating the boundary, asking a question at the end, do you understand? Do you feel that this is something that you can, or is this something that you can support with?
Yeah.
Really getting them to reflect of like, yes, I've heard you, and giving them the time to think, actually, can I do this? Can I respect this boundary? So I think there are some ways on how to set boundaries, but most importantly, get clear on what that boundary is before rushing into it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. I definitely want to touch on communication a little bit later because like the way you phrase that, that's all fantastic communication. And I know in relationships we definitely struggle with that.
Yeah.
But when we talk about boundaries, I'm just thinking about myself. I kind of realized that I was attracting the same type of men. Very emotionally unavailable men. And it wasn't until I realized that was my pattern that I set that boundary. And with my current partner, regardless if he was the red bow on all the not criteria, but he checked all the boxes.
Yeah.
If he was emotionally unavailable, I couldn't do it because that was my hard and fast boundary. But I do wonder when I'm thinking back to like all those patterns of attracting the same type of men, do you see in your work we attract the same type of men until we almost subconsciously learn our patterns or our boundaries?
100% hand on heart. It is something that I see all the time. It's something that I have experienced, and I think we attract what we know and we attract what is familiar even if it's not safe. So my question quickly to you is, if you feel comfortable, what is your relationship with your parents like, with your father, with your mum?
Yeah, it's interesting because I love my parents. I came from such a beautiful, loving household.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting that if I reflected back, why did I attract such emotionally unavailable men when I was always supported and loved so wholeheartedly?
My brain's just ticking there.
Oh, let's go.
So you had a relationship when you were quite young.
Yeah.
And you were really unsure of where you stood in the relationship.
Totally.
Therefore, I'm feeling like he was unavailable. That could have been your first.
Completely. 1,000%.
So usually if you do not have clarity on what something is, he's very avoidant and he's very unavailable.
Yeah.
I hate to put everyone into that basket, but from what I've seen and what I experience in the ladies that come through and do work with me, it's a pattern. So if you're unclear on what's happening, he's very avoidant and he's not giving you essentially what you need. So it doesn't always have to come back to the relationship that you have with your parents. It can come back to a moment where you were really, really young and that kind of sticks with you and it stays with you because you're still evolving and understanding who you are, but then we don't know how to process that either.
Yeah.
So it stays with us. So if that was your first relationship, I would say that that's a pattern that feels familiar. It feels safe, even though it's not, because
that makes sense.
It's what you experienced when you were really young.
Yeah.
So I would say that's probably where it could potentially have started.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That makes sense because I definitely feel like that affected me. I've had like emotional work done and that relationship has affected me throughout my life in different areas randomly. So you see it a lot in your other clients as well, that constant pattern of then what would be like, I obviously knew that was my boundary, but some people don't realize these patterns that we go in and we're attracting the same type of people. What would you do in your work to help them kind of come to that clarity?
of clarity of knowing that
that pattern
has been
Yeah.
stepped over. I think we need to identify where it's coming from
Mm-hmm.
and what's happening for you when you are repeating this pattern or you're allowing this pattern to keep happening. So it comes back a lot to, what's happening in body, what are you feeling, where did you first feel this, and then going back to that experience and kind of being able to process it, because I think a lot of us go through traumatic experiences or things that are hard and challenging for us, especially at young ages, and we don't process it. We don't have time to give it empathy, to give it grace, to hold space for it.
Yeah.
We're so ready to move on to the next relationship to make us feel good. But we're still sitting, our full body still hasn't processed it because, this is 90% and this is 10%.
Yeah.
So it's making sure that my clients come back to understanding what's happening for them in relationships. How are they feeling? Where are they feeling unsafe? What is the pattern that keeps getting tossed around? And how are you not being able to set getting really clear on what's happening for you?
Yeah. I think that is so good. You said something just then where people jump from relationship to relationship, and I see that quite often, even in my friendship groups. They're afraid of being alone, or they just jump to the next one. And it reminds me of this, the phrase like, you complete me. And I'd love to know your opinion on it, because for me, I actually hate the phrase.
Oh, I'm like, oh.
Right?
I almost got like this fiery feeling of like, no.
Because from my perspective, and then I'd love to hear yours, it's like, I want to come into a relationship the most full, complete version of me, so that I am so in love with my life that I don't need another man or whoever to complete me. They're just going to enhance me. I'm not lacking, or I'm not missing a part of me that I need, like filling a void, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And I think that is so beautiful. And I also think that's where society is kind of gone wrong in a way, is saying that we need someone to complete us. We need someone to make us happy. We need someone to buy the house. We need someone to have a child with. I disagree with that. And I think it's society saying that this is the normal and this is successful and this is how it should be. And it does upset me, because I think, life is different for everyone. And I don't think that it should be that this is the way that it has to be, that someone completes you. And I think the only person that is going to make you fully happy and complete you, if you want to use that word, is yourself.
Yeah.
And the stronger that you go into a relationship with how you are as a person, the more incredible that relationship will be, because you'll have stronger self-worth, you'll have clear boundaries, you'll know how to communicate, and you will not settle for breadcrumbs. So doing the work, having time by yourself, processing trauma before rushing into a relationship to make you feel good changes a lot.
Yeah. I do feel like, though, so many women wouldn't even know that they, I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I had someone like you when I was back then.
Same. I wish I had someone like me too. That's why I created my mentorship, actually, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah. Because I think it's so, we don't know what we don't know, and then we'll repeat, and we'll go into those relationships, just like you said, to just feel whole and complete, and instead of knowing that we are complete exactly as we are, and we're the only ones that can make us feel that way. You touched on just then, obviously, and it's been brought up all the time, is communication.
Yes.
Obviously, communication in relationships, in my opinion, are the number one most important thing, in my opinion. I think because I've come from a background of poor communication in relationships.
Yes.
And I think it's what makes my relationship currently the strongest it's ever been, because of communication. So I do, though, think that so many women, or not just women, in general, people struggle with communication, whether that's expressing their wants or their desires or their feelings. Even communicating in sex, I know, is so difficult. What do you see are the most common blocks in communication with women specifically?
Definitely. Communicating is scary. And if your self-worth is low, then it's exactly what you were mentioning in your first relationship. It's like you're too scared to say anything. So I think the things with communication. Oh my gosh, I keep getting mind blanks because I'm focusing on
You're so beautiful.
That never happens.
Then blocks with
Blocks,
communication.
communication blocks. Yeah, so I think what would be happening there is they are either going to step into dysregulation with communicating. So it's going to be really either aggressive or you piss me off. I don't understand why you do this, because there's no regulation happening prior to the conversation. So I feel like that can be a massive block, and then that's only going to cause disconnect in relationships. Yeah. So I see a lot of women come to me and say like, I told him this and I told him that. And for me, it's like, okay, cool, you're expressing, but how are you doing it?
Yeah.
Because that in itself is a block, and it's actually stopping you from being heard. And a lot of people can't actually listen when they feel like they're being attacked, or if someone's talking to them and they're not regulated. I'm not saying this is everyone, but a lot of women that I do see are going in dysregulated into communication, or moving and talking from their emotions rather than actually being able to process that first and then step into communication.
Yeah.
So that is a huge block. And then also the fear of losing someone. So what you were talking about is if I use my voice, it might go in the wrong direction to what I actually want. So therefore it's fearing like if I say it the wrong way, they won't understand, they'll leave me, they won't hear me. And then that taps into a whole new thing, which is abandonment and fearing of being alone and things like that. So they would be the two biggest blocks of when it comes to communicating boundaries. Would definitely have to be the fear of it being taken the wrong way, and then stepping into it dysregulated, and then it ends up not being heard. And then it goes, he didn't hear me, he didn't listen, he's this and he's that, I'm so done with this.
Yeah, okay. When you mean dysregulated, could you define like what would be your version of like regulating yourself before you go into a conversation?
What would you do to regulate?
Yeah.
Yep. So I would, similar to what I said before, is do a breathing technique, and also EFT tapping is amazing. So this is probably very new to a lot of people, but EFT tapping, have you heard of it before?
Yes, yeah.
So even if it's just like under the collarbones, just to bring your heart rate back to a regulated heart rate and it's not kind of beating out of control. So tapping under your collarbones, even tapping on your head, under your eyes, just to bring you back into body. And step out of the actual emotion before you speak. And then maybe taking yourself for a walk if you do feel really like dysregulated, because I feel like the moment that you step outside, you get fresh air, you ground down, it shifts your vibration. So taking a few breaths, getting outside, getting clear on what it is you're communicating. And maybe it's just like jotting it down in your phone on your notes, expressing all of the things that annoy you, and then articulating it in a way that you can be heard rather than it being quite like blamey.
Yeah, I definitely resonate with that. I'm that person that like has to write it down, and like I will think about what I need to say obviously before I communicate. But what about the ones, that's obviously communication if we're going into conflict, and I want to dive a bit more into there as well. But if we're talking about communication in speaking up about our wants, there was that second part about we're afraid of what they might react, or we're not confident in expressing or communicating even around sex and things like that. When it's not a conflict situation, how would you guide someone in more effectively communicating maybe their needs or their wants or their values?
Definitely. So again, get clear on what that actually is prior to going into the conversation. And it would be saying, I guess, the moment that you understand clearly what you need, it's so much easier to communicate it. And also read your partner. So like what kind of things do they like? Do they like physical touch? Do they like eye contact? Set the vibe as well. If you know that you're going into something that you're like, oh, I don't really want to say this, but you know, kind of ease into it. Like you don't need to put pressure on it. They're your partner. They love you for who you are. So I think it's just like taking away the pressure and knowing that it left unsaid is going to be worse than said.
Yeah.
and just trusting yourself that this is something that I really want to express and talk about. So making sure that A, you have clarity on what you're talking about, and B, you are kind of setting the tone. So maybe it's like, hey babe, do you mind if we go for a walk this afternoon? I'd really love to talk to you about something that's been sitting heavy on my chest.
Yeah, I love that.
You could even start a phrase by saying, hey babe, I've been creating this story in my head. Do you mind if I share it with you?
Yeah.
So it's kind of pre-framing, like there's this something that I've been sitting on, but I don't know if it's true. So I'd love to have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
Make it playful, make it fun. Like it doesn't have to be like, okay, so I need to tell you something. It's really hard. Do you want to?
We need to have a talk.
Yeah. So I think setting the tone, getting clear on what it is you're actually communicating, and using phrases to soften in, and always using I, which I'm sure a lot of people know I language. I'm experiencing, I'm noticing, and then get them to be more included in the conversation, asking things like, how does that make you feel? Or I'd love to hear what you think on this.
Yeah.
Because so often, you know, we go into communicating a need or a want, and it's I want, or it's I'm blaming you.
Yeah,
So
for
it's
not
like,
giving me that one. Yeah.
exactly. So I think it's having the time to actually have a beautiful conversation, but ask them questions too.
Yeah.
Even, do you agree with me? I'd love to hear your opinion on this. I'm happy to work through this together. I'm a little bit confused, but I so want your support with this.
Yeah.
Because men also want to feel a part of things and heard and held. Because I think so often women think that it's like we want to be held, heard and seen. So do they. They just have a different energy and frequency as well, because more masculine and feminine.
Yeah.
So it's just being able to hold the balance between expressing but also including, and being calm when you communicate too.
I think that is such good advice. I love that.
Thank you.
If we jump to where we were about conflict, I think that is where communication definitely breaks down with a lot of people as well. And like you said, a lot of people coming in a dysregulated form. When I first got together with my partner, it was so important to me to discuss our conflict styles.
Yes.
I heard it on a podcast with Jay Shetty once, and I was like, we'd never had an argument. We rarely argue, but I was like, I want to know how you fight, because I will feel abandoned if you leave the room, and he's an avoidant arguer, so he will leave the room to process, and I'm that person who wants to talk it out and keep going. Like
That's
I must
me. That's me and my partner to a T, and I'm like, come back here.
I need to know. So I have learnt to allow him to take the time, but he also knows that he has to take the time, go have a shower, which is what he usually does, but then he has to come back. And it has to be, that was what we discussed. But I have seen it in my friends' relationships or people that I know where it's like they've had conflict, but they won't talk to each other for days, like not talking. And then you've also got the other one that it's like blow up and it's just enormous. So what do you see as healthy conflict in healthy relationships? Because it is a normal part of relationships that we can come from a place that's not withdrawing. It's from a secure place. It's not like feeling like you're must be right.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think this is such a big topic as well when it comes to relationships. I could talk about it for 8 hours, quite literally. I think when it comes to healthy, for me, it's more about the recovery. And, you know, obviously being really mindful of what's happening in the conflict, because there's obviously lines that can be stepped, and getting clear on what they are and making sure that's not happening, whether it comes to verbal abuse and physical abuse. So just being really mindful that I'm not saying that it's very different. But for me, if it's heated, you're getting angry, you're frustrated, for me, it's the recovery that's the most important part, and how you come back together. One thing that I will say about that is, you asked your partner what his style of arguing was, essentially, which I think is amazing in the sense of getting to understand the other person before it happens. So you really want to get clear on what is happening for that person to almost prevent it. So it's like you do the work before the argument actually happens. But I think a really healthy style is being able to express as well, because, you know, we do feel a lot of emotions. We are allowed to feel angry. We are allowed to feel pissed off. And I think a lot of women shame themselves for having that. It's okay to feel that something's not right, and vice versa. But for me, it's like, how are we recovering after that argument or after that disagreement?
Yeah, that really makes sense. And that recovery. So if we're heated recovery, what would be recovery techniques? Like we've had an argument, it's got heated. How are we recovering?
Definitely. So it's knowing what your partner needs first. So for you and your partner, it's your maybe a little bit more anxious? Advice. Yeah. So you're needing potential presence and maybe physical touch a little bit after you've cooled down, and he's needing space for about maybe an hour just to cool down. So understanding what your needs are prior to that happening. So giving yourselves, once the fights happen, do what you need and make a plan. So your partner knows that you like presence, so he knows after the shower he has to come back and touch base with you and not go days without talking. So you kind of understand your styles, figure out what it is you both need to have that cooling off period, and then make sure that you are doing the next steps that you and your partner both need. I would say as well, going for a walk, getting outside, having a moment of expressing what you were feeling, but also saying things like, I really want to be able to hear you in this conversation. Do you mind in, 24 hours or when I feel fully recovered, like regulated, can we please tap back into this conversation?
Yeah.
So I think, and also being able to gracefully hold each other and just say, look, we made a mistake, and apologizing as well, but not apologizing in the way that it's, I'm sorry, but, you can understand why I did A and C.
Yeah.
It's just own it.
Yeah.
And I think the moment that you go, I'm really sorry for what I did, and never apologizing for how you made someone feel, because that's not your responsibility. Take responsibility for the action that you did in the conflict or what you said, rather than saying, oh, I'm so sorry that you're upset.
Oh my gosh, I've said that. That's so interesting.
I've said it too, but I think it's like, well, really you're apologizing for how they're feeling, and, people choose how they feel, but I think you need to take responsibility for what you actually said. So get clear on it is, I'm so sorry I don't know, called you A, B, and C.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry that I spoke to you with disrespect.
Yeah.
Get clear on it. Own it.
Yeah.
Because the moment that you own it, it also shows the other person like, oh, they get it. They hear me. They understand. The moment you're apologizing for how someone made you feel, it's like, no, you don't get it.
Yeah.
And then it lights up again.
Yeah. Okay. I really love that. That is so helpful.
There you go.
Okay. What about in relationships? I'm sure you've come across this as well. In friend groups, etc. It's like we get to a certain age, maybe the relationship that they're in is not the best. They're fighting all the time. Maybe they're not so happy. Maybe values don't align, but we're mid-30s and we're comfortable because we do not leave because we're afraid of not finding anyone better. Like that's all there is. Do you come across that in your work?
All the time.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but often.
Yeah.
Often. And the first thing that I say to the ladies is choose your heart. And I think that's hard to swallow sometimes, is it's hard to stay and it's hard to leave.
Yeah.
Which one do you want to be working on in the next 2 years, 5 years?
Oh, that's such a good question.
How long can you put up with the, lack of intimacy? How long can you put up with the arguments? How long can you put up with being dismissed, having an avoidant partner, not meeting your needs or your wants? Versus how long can you put up sitting through discomfort for the first couple of months and feeling a bit lonely, processing emotion, sitting in pain, finding a new place to live, whatever it looks like for you. It's like, which hard do you want to choose?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I let them make that decision and reflect.
That is so good. Have you found some really beautiful outcomes of women like coming back to themselves or realizing what they actually want? Because I feel like when you're in a relationship for so long, lines get blurred. Like what's your identity almost and what's in some relationships, there's been this like merge of couple instead of you're this and you're that, and your values kind of like merge together. So do you find in your work it's this beautiful thing that you're seeing where people are coming back to realization of who they are or what they want in a relationship?
All the time. It's like just she's already there. Like it's just pulling parts of her out to be able to see.
Yeah.
And I see it all the time, and it's almost like a switch. You say one sentence like choose your heart. And the energy changes, I feel like I've said that so much, but the vibration completely shifts, and it's almost like we do a lot of other work as well, but there's always that light bulb moment that women are like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Or I am done talking about this and I'm going to start implementing this to create change.
I really love that.
It's
What
very
about,
special.
let's talk about dating. Do you work with people that are trying to attract their ideal partner?
Yeah.
Okay, let's say that
This is a fun topic.
I'm excited because I'm like, I am not dating, and I always love hearing dating stories. I don't know why, but if I was like dating, I was single, I'm wanting to attract my ideal partner. There is so much online about like, write a whole list of everything so very clearly to the color of his eyes, or there's
Literally.
these other things where it's like, no, be like, just focus on values, whatever.
Yeah.
What would be your technique or idea about how we can attract the most aligned partner, but also the most healthy relationship?
I feel like mine's going to be a bit controversial, but I'm going to say it anyway.
I'm ready.
So firstly would be like put yourself first and foremost is do everything that you love. This is your opportunity to just fully lap it up. Like see your friends, start the business, go on your hot girl walks, do all of the things that you absolutely love and desire, because then you're obviously moving in an energy and a level that makes you happy. So therefore people are going to be drawn to you because you're at a high frequency and you're happy. You're doing all of the things, you're looking after yourself, you're going to the gym, you're eating well. Really pour back into your health and get clear on the things that actually make you happy. And once you move in that direction, I just feel like doors open up in so many different ways. But definitely putting yourself first and doing the things that you love. But my controversial one would probably be date a lot of men.
Yeah.
You don't have to sleep with all of them, but who's to say that we have to date the one person and see if it works? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Will there be connection? Will there be intimacy? I think for me, prior to me meeting my amazing partner that I have now, I was dating lots of different people. I wasn't sleeping with all of them, but I was getting used to different personalities. What did I like? What didn't I like? Who made me feel comfortable? Who could I be my true self around?
Yeah.
And that's where you learn a lot about yourself too. So I think if you are single and you're wanting to call in your person, I think there's so many people out there. Why cap it at one person of like, I'll get to know him for 6 months, and if it doesn't work out, I'll see how it goes or who else is around. Like, and making it really playful, like going on dates that aren't just sitting in front of each other at a restaurant and being like, what do you do for work?
Yeah.
Like, let's go to if you feel comfortable and you trust them, but going for adventures, like let's go and do an activity, because that's also how you're going to learn about that person and if you're a good fit, and seeing if you vibe together.
Yeah, I love that. It's also like you work out dating different people, work out what you actually like in each person and what character trait and what you're willing to, what you want in a relationship and what you do not want in a relationship. I feel like I've always said that every relationship that I've ever had, every bad one, every good one, has always taught me something about myself and also what I want in a partner. So when that one comes along, it just feels right, because you know either how to communicate better because you've learnt all these things. You know what traits you do want and don't want. Is that what you feel as well with your clients?
100%. And I think that's where it comes back to pour back into your cup first and let everything else do its own thing. Because I think the moment that we focus on like, oh, like I'm not attracting anyone, or I'm going to be alone forever, or where's my perfect person, it's almost putting a wall up and like a repellent for anyone to come near you because you're too fearful of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So the moment you shift that energy into how can I love myself? How can I treat myself? Maybe it's going to a day spa and pouring love into yourself. Like just do everything for you. Don't worry about the other person or when they're coming or what it's going to look like and will they love me enough? Will they give me what I need? Drop the pressure.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. Like I feel like the moment that you do that, that's when the people do come in.
Yeah, I agree. Two-part. It's like that vibration. You're at a higher frequency, like you said. You're feeling so good, you become a magnet for people. But also, you're not going to attract the people, or you're not going to settle. I'm using settle in quotation marks because it's like, when you were saying that person saying, oh, but what if I'm this way, or what if I don't meet someone? Then they'll just jump into a relationship because they're so worried about being alone.
Yeah.
So being so full and, like we talked about before, pouring into yourself first so that when you come into a relationship, it's like you don't need to be completed.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where we sometimes go wrong, is thinking that we need to wait for someone else to make us happy. Be that person already. That comes back to manifestation too, is like start living that dream life that you want already.
Yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful. Okay. If we're talking about healthy relationships, what do you feel like, leaving us with this kind of final thing, would be the components of a healthy relationship?
So you're being able to communicate effectively.
Yeah.
You're being able to hear each other out and set boundaries. You're having strong intimacy, whether that is having, it doesn't have to be meaning having sex, but going out and having fun, making sure that you're prioritizing date time as well.
Yeah.
And not just an hour, not just a weekend every blue moon. Really get clear on the time that you spend with your partner, and I think that's huge. As well as pouring into your own self-development. I think the moment that you are focusing on your life and they're focusing on theirs, you come together and you build this foundation that is so strong because you've done your part.
Yeah, I agree.
And then you come back together, and I'm sure you can relate with your relationship that you have now. And you almost like, you've got great communication, you've got balance, you're doing your own things. So I think they're really, really important, and ways to see that people are moving through healthy relationships.
I really love that. And if you could leave the women listening with one piece of advice, whether it's mindset, a boundary that they could bring into their relationship or dating this week that will completely change how they are about themselves or in that relationship.
I think start with some reflection this week. Whip out your phone. If you're not like a journal girly, you can just pop it in your notes and just like word vomit everything that's happening up in the mind and get it out essentially. And then kind of move from there. If there's something that's not aligned with you, move in that direction, start to tap into what's happening for the body, start to breathe. But if I break it down, get outside more this week, spend some time in nature, do some reflection, start to use your breath, bring yourself back into your body. Because once you bring yourself back into your body, you have more awareness to the things that aren't serving you or the things that you would like to start calling in.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love this. I feel like I could talk about relationships forever.
I'm trying to get it all in at once. But
No, that is so good. It's like my favorite topic is relationships. I was like, I just love love.
Yeah, so do I. It's a special thing.
Yeah, literally. So before we finish up, every guest that comes on the show opens her file.
Yes.
So what this is it allows us to go a little bit deeper into you, a little bit more behind the scenes into you, to show us how you became her or the woman that you are today.
Oh, I love that.
So open up the
Am I
file.
opening it?
Yeah, there are 3 questions in there.
This is a fantastic idea.
And I just want you to pick one, whichever one you feel like you resonate the most to. Don't think too hard and just answer it. Read it aloud first so we know what you're answering.
Yeah. So do you want me to read all 3 of them?
No, just one that resonates the most with you.
Oh, wow. These are good. Okay, I think I'll go with this one. What's something you were carrying for way too long that you finally let go of? I'm like, I need to sit on that. They're such beautiful, powerful questions. I think shame. I was holding on to a lot of shame and guilt around the relationship with my father, and really, really low self-worth because of that. And I had to release that to be able to move forward in life. So I think I carried it for way too long and unconsciously was very unaware of how it was showing up in my life. And it wasn't until I was about 26 that I really started to be like, this is actually dictating my life now.
Yeah.
The shame and the guilt and the low self-worth because of the relationship I had with my father. But I can hands on heart say that I have moved through that. I've done the work. I've done the study. I've done it all. And I definitely move at a different frequency now because I let that go.
Oh, that is so powerful. Jamila Bonvegna, thank you for coming on In Her Era. I am so grateful to have you. I know that so many people would have got so much out of this episode, whether it's just through your experience, but also the knowledge and the advice that you give people. So if we could direct people to where they can find you, where they can learn more, if they want to be like, oh my gosh, I resonate so much, where can I work with you?
Definitely. So if you head to my Instagram, I'm like, I can't even remember my handle. Maybe you can pop it in your notes.
I will be on the show
But
notes.
yes, if you go to it's EmpowHer Coaching on Instagram, and you've got all your links there, so it'll direct you into the right avenue. Send me a DM. We can also have a chat. We can voice note. We can see what I guess is presenting in your life and where I could potentially be of help. So yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure.
Of course.